Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Do you remember this video? You get an LRT, you get an LRT, you get an LRT, you get an LRT, and you guys, you're getting an LRT. Yeah, so as we know, the Hamilton LRT was sent to the grave, never to be found again. But today, of all days, I wasn't expecting it, the Hamilton LRT made a reappearance. Let's talk about it in this video. As everyone knows, I am not the biggest fan of LRTs everywhere. You know, a few years back in Toronto, the most popular view to have in City Hall was subways, subways, subways. And then some sensible people came in and said, whoa, we don't need subways everywhere, folks. Maybe we could just have And then immediately a new group of people came in. They tossed the sensible people out the window into, and sent them away to crazy, sane world. And said, no, it's time for LRTs, LRTs, LRTs. Now, if I'm honest, the Hamilton LRT, of all the LRTs we're building right now, actually makes a decent amount of sense. With Finch, it's kind of just replacing a bus route, and you might be able to argue you could do higher order rapid transit on Finch. Here in Ontario, it's my personal view that higher order rapid transit makes more sense. For Eglinton, I've made lots of videos about Eglinton. And to be clear, we're building these projects. There's nothing we can do now. Hindsight is 2020, as is foresight for the non-LRTs, LRTs, LRTs crowd. The truth is, in Hamilton's case, I actually think the LRT maybe makes the most sense. Because if you look at the corridor that it's going to be running on, it's kind of narrow. You'd probably have to tunnel it if you wanted to do proper rapid transit. And let's be honest, there's a lot of trip generators, right? And Hamilton could use the transit investment because in terms of GO, it doesn't really get a ton of service, and despite getting the new West Harbour station, there isn't a lot of train service to there, and so let's try to do an LRT in Hamilton. A tramway. It's a tramway. So if you're wondering what happened and what spurred this insane onslaught of Hamilton LRT talk, it's the fact that the province basically said, we'll do the Hamilton LRT, but only if the feds go halfsies with us on it. So the province said basically, we can do it from McMaster to Gage as long as the feds are in with it. But they also released some reports which were interesting that suggested some kind of wacky, crazy solutions. So I really want to talk about that. So within the report was some Brt Solutions which are pretty sane, they make a lot of sense, and so I don't even think they're worth really talking about. They basically are the B and A lines from the blast plan for Hamilton, which in a weird way sort of correspond with line 1 and 2 in Toronto if you think about it. It's kind of like you've got West Harbour is Union, and then the A line is like Yonge, and then the B line is like the Bloor line, maybe? So inside this report was the details for a Three-Stop Lrt Plan. No, seriously, if you like the three-stop and one-stop subway plans, here's the Three-Stop Lrt Plan. And even better, it's not just an additional stop, it is literally 3 stops, that's it. That's the whole story, folks, between McMaster and Dundurn. The plan is crazy. It has a stop in the middle, a stop on each side, and an OMSF, right? And so clearly that doesn't make a ton of sense. And the province basically said, hey, if we don't have money from the feds, this is what we could build. That's crazy, we need money from the feds. And that makes sense. Probably a bit overkill, but I like the attitude. Let's get some money going and let's build a proper system. The issue is that the business case is brutal, and it's so brutal that I'm not sure it's going to be that much better when you extend it to Gage. Now, I know that over time, I think the way the business cases have been done has been kind of updated, which would make sense, right? As we do more projects and we become smarter, more enlightened, we update our business case so that we have a better model to kind of understand how projects are going to work. But with this business case, something is coming through that I had pointed to a long time ago. Now, back, probably 10 years ago, the Surrey LRT was being pushed really hard, and I was back in Surrey. I was like, LRT, it's so cool, city transforming power, right? Trains on streets. I seriously was a big fan of that plan. And what TransLink found was that there was not a positive benefit-cost ratio for the Surrey LRT. What that essentially means is that, hey, we're going to spend $1 billion maybe on a project. We should expect probably to get $1 billion in benefit, right? Otherwise, what are we doing? We're basically just throwing money out the window. And the issue was that when you looked at the Surrey SkyTrain versus the LRT was negative for benefit cost, and the SkyTrain was positive. A little positive, not super positive. It wasn't 2, but it was above 1. And so the plan got moved eventually to doing the SkyTrain. Now, what we're seeing with this LRT, and what I imagine we would see with more of the LRTs were we to act retroactively, is that the benefit cost ratio is not above 1. What that means is, again, you're spending money, you get something, you get an LRT, but by the best estimates of our economists and planners and bright minds, it's not actually going to provide the benefit in equal value to the amount we spent on the line. Now again, that doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. It's always possible that these business cases are wrong. In fact, it's something I try to advertise. Like, these models are not infallible, right? When you try to predict crazy things like where people are going to live, how they're going to commute in the future, etc., you just cannot predict 100% accurately, or even all that accurately. And so the best we can do is kind of recalibrate over time. But still, when something is so low, it's concerning. And even if you do add the additional segment down into the core of Hamilton, which turns things probably into a sane benefit cost ratio, you still have the fundamental question, why do these LRTs tend to perform poorly? And the answer is because they're not all that fast. I know people like to say that LRTs have a top speed that's the same as the subway, and that's reasonable because they do. And if you were to put an LRT in a tunnel like we're doing on Eglinton, then you get the same speeds and a very similar operating pattern to a subway. The issue is that, well, then you should just do the subway, because a subway train is more like kind of attuned to that type of operation. And so what happens is, if you go with LRT, you inevitably are going to use the flexibility to operate on streets, which then just starts hurting you because, again, the trains don't operate faster than a bus most of the time. That's okay, because trains are more comfortable, right? There's a smoother ride, they fit more people, etc. The issue is that while you do get that benefit, the point of this benefit cost ratio is that, well, the benefit just isn't as much as the amount you spend. And so I think that's something that we'll probably see broadly with LRT in a lot of places. In a place like Kitchener-Waterloo, where the project for ION didn't cost a ton, the benefit cost ratio is probably pretty high because, it's an up-and-coming region, we don't have to spend that much, and we're getting quite a bit for our money because we have these rail corridors that we can repurpose. But in Hamilton, I think, it starts to hurt because you don't have a dedicated rail corridor, a lot of land and utilities need to be reconfigured, and so it's expensive. And so I've thought about it a lot, and I'm not sure what the solution for Hamilton is. I'd love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think would be a good way of, spending it seems like $2 billion we have on the Hamilton LRT to create rapid transit in Hamilton? I think that BRT might actually be a pretty good option, create a bit of a grid like Brampton Zoom. It's been very successful, right? So something like that might make sense, and it would connect more destinations, allow for more one-trip rides, etc., which is an issue with LRT again, is that not only is it slow, but if you don't build a whole corridor as LRT, well, now you're forcing people who used to be able to ride a bus from one place to another to ride a bus, get off, wait 5 to 10 minutes, and then get on another vehicle that's not even faster than a bus. It's like, can you imagine going from Main Street Station to Dundas to get to Union, like via streetcar, so basically streetcar, subway, versus taking the subway to Bloor Yonge and then going to Union? Like, I don't think that trip would be done nearly as often if you had to take the streetcar, right? And I think it's the same here, is that if you create this slower mode that you have to transfer to for a lot of trips, you not only negatively impact kind of the transferring customers, but you negatively impact the whole network, because a transit network requires interchange between many lines, right? And so while the LRT is probably better than the existing bus service, as long as you're using the section that is LRT-ified, on the whole, it's not any better. Anyways, I've talked a ton, and to be clear, I'm not sure what the answer for Hamilton is. I'm a little skeptical of LRT, but at the end of the day, people have fought tooth and nail to get something built. And if the LRT gets funded by the feds, well, I'm happy for people who advocated for it because they worked really hard and they fought for something and they ended up getting it. My only question is it really the best solution for us? Could we not have found something better? And that's a broad question, because in Ontario, we're building a lot of LRTs, as per my earlier clip. I think that there's not much we can do about the existing LRTs we're building because You're not going to grade separate every intersection, and so you're kind of stuck with it. The question is, what will we do next time the opportunity comes around? Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.